Joining me is economic advisor at Judo Bank, Warren Hogan. Warren, thank you for your time. You've been in the lockup. You've read through the budget. Is it inflationary?
Look, I think it's mildly at the margin, but it's not a concerning amount of impulse. Like certainly you're going to see the energy bills take off inflation, measured inflation, CPI, and that will help with things like wages and wage claims. But what economists are worried about is that there's putting money into the economy, 12 billion of new policy spend, the cost of living, all this sort of thing. But the reason I'm not too worried about that is because it is replacing, in a way, the lower middle income tax offset, the one-off cost of living payments from the previous government before the election. So in terms of the hip pocket, I don't think there actually is a big injection coming. What worries me, actually, more importantly than any of this, is the big population numbers. And we're already starting to see that as an inflation issue in the housing rental markets, with rents going up, and rents are one of the biggest components of the CPI. And the numbers are huge. They're the biggest numbers we've ever seen, and they continue to be very strong next year. And I do worry about that population surge and the inflationary implications of that.
The boost to migration has a flow-on effect, though, in the longer term, in terms of economic growth as well.
It's huge. That's one of the main features of this budget, is this massive upward revision to the number of Australians in the workforce. By 2032, the Australian workforce is 2.7% bigger than what they thought 6 months ago. And of course, all of that income tax that comes with a much bigger workforce is what's boosted all of the government revenues. So that's been the biggest element in improving the budget position, which of course is still deficits for as far as the eye can see. We've got a surplus now and it's touch and go next year. But beyond that, we've still got a structural budget deficit of at least 1.5%, if not 2% of GDP. And the only thing that's offsetting it now is this bigger workforce.
So how do you rate where the government's finances are at?
Look, they look pretty good in terms of having a surplus and a small deficit. But as I said, we've still got this structural budget deficit. And that will come home to roost as soon as the economy slows. So I actually think if we get the kind of slowdown they're forecasting, I don't think the government's finances will look as good. So look, we're not in any kind of crisis, but this surplus is temporary. It's going to disappear as quickly as it appeared. And I think they've got some seriously big structural issues to address before the next election.
Warren Hogan, I always appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us in the lockup today.
Thanks, Kieran.